Out of order, please. Can I get roll call, please?
Councilmember Mario Buchanan Jr.,
Present.
Councilmember Africa Luna Carrasco,
Present.
Councilmember Jose Ponce,
Present.
Councilmember Matias Rosales,
Present.
Councilmember Gloria Torres,
Present.
Vice Mayor Maria Cecilia Cruz,
Present.
Mayor Gerardo Sanchez.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to welcome everyone to our yearly retreat. This is our year 2020-21 fiscal year retreat or planning session. Right now, it's a very the world is caught in this pandemic that is affecting all communities, not only in the United States but worldwide. It is something that's affecting every single community, and we are not excluded. In regards to the state of Arizona, there's a lot of cities that are in dire need or in a situation where they don't know what's going to happen next year in regards to finance, because a lot of these communities depend on sales tax, depend on a particular tax, or depend on people purchasing items and for them to be spending in their community. We are basically dependent on that also. Since October of last year, our basically the people who cross over, our pedestrian population has gradually been lower, and it's noticeable. People are not crossing. Delays are the highest in the state. When you have to wait 4 or 5 hours, people don't want to come. And fear is the number one driving force that is basically preventing us or preventing everyone. Things are changing. Things are going to change in regards to COVID-19. Our social interactions, our social behaviors have changed, and I believe will continue to change. While this is happening, the city has to change, has to modify. We need to adjust. I know there's a lot of things on this budget, but a lot of things were done before the COVID-19. So I asked council, I asked section heads, I asked city administrator, I asked Ralph, and to actually, let's look at what we can actually do, but let's be conservative, very conservative, because we don't know. We're actually going to start seeing the ramifications of what's going on, I would say 3-6 months from now. And let's be careful. Let's be cautious. Let's treat this as if, for example, we were back in 2008, 2009 with the economic crisis. The city had to do major changes. The city had to do restructuring. The city had to adjust to the economic situation that was around us. At this point in time, we have to do the same thing. We survived then and we will survive now. But we need to be cautious. We need to make sure that if we need to spend something, let's make sure we really think about it, or can it wait one more year? I think the 2020-2021 fiscal year is going to test everyone, and everyone in the state. We're not the only ones. So I commend staff for being here. I really appreciate section heads. I know being in a confined room at this point in time everyone feels unsafe right now, and that's why I will be cutting the presentation short. I can tell you right now. So when you go home tonight, think of how we can cut your presentations in half. I'm going to ask that this is going to be one of our shortest but more effective and more efficient retreats we have. We have to minimize exposure at this point in time, and if we can minimize, because we have to work till 5 o'clock tomorrow, but if we can cut it by 2-3 hours, let's do it. And I ask, if you have an extra long presentation, this excludes finance. Okay, This excludes finance. But everyone else, I expect you to cut your presentation by half. So you have homework tonight, guys. Okay? And so because it's hard. It's going to be hard. It's hard to focus. It's hard to pay attention to what's going on sometimes with everything going around, the news and things that are going around. So let's stay focused. Let's cut our presentations by half and make this a very successful, a very productive retreat. But let's be conscious also. Let's focus on essential positions, necessary positions. Let's focus on essential necessities for the city to continue growing smartly. Let's be proactive, like we have always been. And I would like to thank everyone for being here. I would like to thank just to let you know, section heads, you are essential. You are essential to the function of the city of San Luis. And that's the reason why you're here. I know a lot of people say, why should be here? Why should I be here exposing myself? There's certain people who are essential, and we cannot work without you being here or council. Thank you so much, and what we're doing right now really reflects in our city. Our city right now is in a good situation, but things might change next week. So thank you for being part of the city. Thank you for putting in your 2 cents, and thank you for working this budget. Tomorrow, I'm going to ask council members to individually say something, but today we're going to go ahead and go directly to our source, to our 3 presentations today. So council members, be thinking something tomorrow morning that you want to say personally, okay? So we're going to go ahead and go with the first presentation. Let me go into my iPad here. But if I see that your presentation is extended, lasting too long, I will intervene and I will ask you to cut it there, okay? Just to let you know. So the less exposure, the better off we are all. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go with item number 2A, discussion in all matters regarding the proposed changes to the City of San Luis benefits plan for the fiscal year 2020-2021, presented by Ms. Susan Posada, City of San Luis benefits consultant. Susan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council and staff, for allowing me to be here. I will try to make it as short as possible, but I also want to make sure that everybody stays safe. I want to remind everybody that the decisions that we made for this year on the benefits were prior to COVID-19. But I think that we have it all pretty well established. So the first page, I'm going to go over very, very quickly. This particular first sheet is basically what we're doing is removing the win-win that we had last year. We had implemented. It didn't really take off, but I understand that it takes 2 to 3 years for it to kind of take off. It was a little bit complex for employees to comprehend, but we brought in a company by the name of eSurgery. And the good news about eSurgery is that it can actually save us quite a bit of money. So instead of maybe using UniHospital or going to a different outpatient clinic or another center for imaging, they're going to help you, direct you to the right place if you want to save money. And what happens is basically if you go to primary care, and they do an X-ray or lab there, it's zero copay. If we go to a secondary provider, which is eSurgery, we're going to have a zero copay, okay? If you go to a hospital, it's going to be 20% plus your deductible. For complex imaging, such as eSurgeries, it's going to be zero copay. Let's see, the hospital would be a zero deductible, and it'll be waived if you use eSurgery. This is the eSurgery column here, okay? So if you utilize and get a pre-authorization, you go to eSurgeries will contact you. They'll help you, direct you to the right place. If you choose to go to that place, you're going to save your deductible of $750. You're going to save your coinsurance of 20%. So it's going to be another win-win if we utilize it. It's a great benefit for employees, and the city saves money. Any questions about that?
No.
It looks good so far. Council members, any questions?
You know,
No, Mayor.
No, sir.
allow me to back up for just a moment. I work very closely with finance. The trust at the end of the year was $3.6 million. It's very heavy. It was heavy. And the last 2 years, your claims have been beautiful. So that's the reason that we've been able to save quite a bit of money into the trust. But one of these the changes that we're making will help the employees, but it'll be a little bit more costly in some respects, but not in others, because e-surgeries can save us quite a bit of money. Okay, to the point that we are cutting the budget for the medical at 5% and the dental for 3%. The additional plan changes are the out-of-pocket maximum was $5,500 and $11,000 for family. We're recommending $4,500 and $9,000 for family. Again, this is another benefit to the members. The second one is we're changing the co-insurance for out-of-network only. Right now, the plan pays 60%, the member pays 40% if they go out-of-network, and we're going to change that to 50-50. We're trying to encourage members to stay either with Blue Cross and Blue Shield or with e-surgery, okay? The specialty medication, nobody will really see this technically. We want to work with Magellan to be able to allow them to get the same medications, whether they're purchased in the United States, but we can purchase them, let's say in Canada, for a lot cheaper. They're the same medications, no different. So the other thing that we want to do is allow them to do that so that we can reduce costs, okay? The second thing is the U.S. dental. The dental, this is really good news. Right now in the U.S., we have a $2,000 calendar year. We're giving you an additional $250. If in the prior year, the prior calendar year, you did not use more than 75% of your benefits, we're going to give you the next year another $250. Okay? That's really good for all of the members. The ortho will stay the same at $2,000 because the ortho is kind of like a one-time cost, not an ongoing cost. And the Mexico plan, we're decreasing the out-of-pocket maximum to mirror the U.S. plan at $4,500 per individual and $9,000. Okay? And then we're also making a change. I apologize. We're also making a change because right now the Mexico plan has out-of-network for emergency, but even if it's not an emergency, it's covered out-of-network. What we're trying to do is change it so that it mirrors the Gadsden plan. They do not have any out-of-network except for emergency, okay? So this is what that's talking about right now. Am I echoing? Yeah, a little bit, huh?
Oh, very good.
The pharmacy, we're decreasing it from 3. I wonder how this happened. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Echo? Okay. The pharmacy is decreased from 3 to 6 for the pharmacy in Mexico to 2 to 5. This is good news for the members. Everything that we're doing just about is very good news. For the Mexico dental, the same as the U.S. We're giving them $125 per calendar year if they do not exceed that 75% the prior year. So we're giving them an additional 125. We changed the copay from preventative to zero copay. The basic services such as fillings from $20 to $5. Major services like root canals and stuff like that are going to go from 20 to 10. This is all good news. The FaraMed agreement, we've agreed to not change the plan, but extend it for another 3 years. The wellness, I'm sorry, when I click it changes pages. The wellness and biometrics, we have given, the trust has agreed to give them $18,000 because we do have the funds so that the HR can utilize that for biometrics and wellness programs at their discretion. So it'll be a change of $18,000. The vision plan, which is not approved by the trust, we've allowed and changed the vision for the frame, $130 to $150 allowance. That's really good because the price of frames are going up. As far as the vision is concerned, the increase in changing it to $150 for the frame is only $1,667. Okay. And the budget, I'll go really quickly, work with accounting. Basically what we did is we decreased everything for about, almost rounding it out, it's about a 5.98 decrease is 186,000 that the city will save. Part of that, about 100,000 will go over, 140,000 will go over to the city. So that means that you will save that amount of money that you don't have to budget for the medical plan. Again, everybody has done a beautiful job, beautiful job. Even though the last 2 years have been good, I have seen bad years. And I'm not suggesting that it's not going to be this way next year. We were conservative in what we did, even not taking into account this pandemic. But I still think that we're in very, very good shape for the coming year. Any questions?
No.
I'm going to ask each council member, okay? So I just want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity. Councilmember Ponce, any questions or concerns?
No, sir.
Matias, any questions or concerns?
Just had a question or clarify on the out-of-pocket, that was for out-of-network, the 50/50?
Yes, that's only out of network. Mm-hmm. But the good news is we decreased the we didn't decrease it. Yes, that's only out of network. And
So what's the
Mayo
difference
is
with
not out of
out-of-pocket?
network.
What's the difference with out-of-pocket network only individual family or out-of-pocket network only? Both items there.
Oh, right here? The out of pocket.
To the left.
To the left? Okay, this is what it is right now. It's the 5,000. So whenever you reach the 4,500, it starts to pay at 100%. The plan will pay. Once your cost reaches 4,500, where before it was 5,500, we dropped it. So that's to your benefit.
Now, can you move your mouse over to the left a little bit more where it shows the out-of-network, out-of-pocket or out-of-network only individual family, and then below it says network only?
Yes, right here.
Yeah, what's
It's
the
the
difference?
it's the out of network. So the out of pocket, this is the out of pocket. This one's out of pocket. Okay. This is what we call out of network. So if you go to, let's say you're in New York, God forbid, but you go to a hospital that it's not in the Blue Cross network, then you would be paying, the 50% co-insurance. But with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, we have an excellent network in Arizona and throughout the country. Very good. We also have multi-plan if you go to California, or multi-plan is in other states too. So we can use multi-plan, we can use Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And in Arizona right now, we're using e-surgery beginning July 1st. So what this means, this is a decrease to you if you go out of network.
Okay.
But this is really good for you, the 4,500.
Okay, thank you.
And we did it so that it could match the Mexico plan, okay?
Beautiful. Thank you. Africa, any questions or concerns?
No, sir, none at this moment.
Thank you. Gloria Torres, any questions or concerns?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, any questions or concerns?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Mario Buchanan, any questions or concerns?
No, Mayor, no questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan, I just want to congratulate you for the excellent, I mean, this is a big difference. Whereas we're still, well, most plans are increasing their premiums at higher rates and actually making our employees pay more out of pocket. We and you have managed to cut prices and actually lessen the out of pocket expense for our employees, not only here, but in also the Mexican plan. So congratulate Human Resources. And this is a really good job. And guys, we're saving money on this one. And the trust, it's amazing how the trust, when we started, there was only $1 million in that trust. Now there's over 3 million, I believe. So thank you. Kudos to staff, and kudos to Human Resources and Finance. Thank you so much. And Susan, once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, please. I also want to thank HR and accounting. Everyone worked really, really hard on the plan changes. And they're also working really hard to do an online enrollment during this time. So that'll be coming. Okay? Thank you. And stay safe.
Thank you, Susan.
Stay safe, Susan, especially in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
This is not a, I believe, Kay, point of clarification, this is not up yet. Okay? What happened to Kay? Se fue? Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed. Item number 2B, discussion and review any and all matters regarding the proposed City of San Luis fiscal year 2020-21 budget. Okay, who's going to be our first presentation? Tadeo?
That'll be Finance Department.
Monica, thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and colleagues. I'm waiting for my presentation to show on the screen right now. Perfect. Okay. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the budget retreat. The information that we will be presenting today and tomorrow is the hard work of all the departments. Many meetings took place to identify the priorities and needs of the community. Several months back, when this process started, little did we know that we were going to be going through a worldwide pandemic. For that reason, the request that the department submitted did not meet the current circumstances. In an effort to take a step forward, we made some revisions to the budget to make sure that it was more aligned to the situation that we are in. But as you will be learning in this presentation, there is still work to do. The work is not completed, so we need still look into some items to make sure that we go into the fiscal year 2021 with a balanced budget. Okay, so what are the objectives for this budget retreat? No question about it, this is an unprecedented event. COVID-19 have caused a economic and health crisis. The measures that we needed to take in order to stop the spread of this disease have triggered an economic downturn. It is very difficult to measure or identify what will be the financial impact because things are changing day by day, very rapidly. So even though that most experts agree that this will be a short-term crisis, we don't know exactly if it will be 3 months, 6 months, or maybe longer. Some people say that it might take longer. That's the reason that we need to plan for both. We need to be prepared. Also, another objective for this budget retreat is to adopt an operating budget that is mindful of the current situation we are facing. We want to build some flexibility for the future and ensure that our budget is balanced for next year. Top priority, it is ensure the continuance of services to our residents with fiscal responsibility. Okay, so I know everybody, that's the million-dollar question. What will be our revenues for next year? And the answer will be, we do not know. But certainly we can prepare. And in the next part of the presentation, we will be looking into the revenues history, and we will be discussing things that we can do right now to address the situation that we are going through and how to face the uncertainty for next year. This chart shows the history for the revenues for the past 5 years. We can see that we have been increasing consistently by a 7% average. For fiscal year 2020, we can see that the trend is upward. And also, as we have been saying, we know that we are expecting a decrease in sales tax in the last quarter of this fiscal year, but we still do not know. Most experts or the external sources that we have received indicate that it will be between 10% and 30%. For purposes of the projection, we utilize a 30% reduction sales to be on the conservative side. Utilizing this assumption, we project that for fiscal year 2020, we will have 48.9 million. This is higher than fiscal year 2019, and the reason we still see the trend upward is because the first 2 quarters for 2020 were excellent. We were thriving. Everything was going very, very good. So these 2 quarters are helping to soften or cushion the losses that we expect in the last quarter. However, as I mentioned, all of these are projections, and we don't have the crystal ball that can tell us accurately if this is going to happen. As the mayor was mentioning right now, we see restaurants restricting these activities, business closing temporarily. Many consumers that come from Mexico are not coming anymore. So if these losses of revenue go higher than 30%, we will be in serious trouble. We can put the city in risk of financially risking the financial position of the city. That's what we should take action now. So what can we do? As I discussed, we had 2 very good quarters that are giving us some cushion. We also had some savings on operating expenses. The combination of these 2 events have given us some buffer to sustain sales losses of 30%. But we do not know if the impact will be greater. We should be prepared. Sales tax data for March, we wouldn't be knowing until mid-May how things are going on. If we wait until mid-May when we have the first data from March, it will be too late if the information is worse than what we are assuming. So We are proposing immediate recommendations for this fiscal year, which is delay hiring of non-essential positions and filling only those that are urgent, eliminate non-essential operating spending, delay non-essential capital expenditures, and monitor the budget against actual revenues and expenditures continuously. It is important that we monitor the budget because we want to act on factual data. We don't want to act in panic mode. But right now, we don't have that information. But if by mid-May, we conclude that the situation is sustainable, we can resume and complete the purchases that were delayed. But what if it's the other way around and the situation is worse and the losses of revenue are worse than what we can sustain? All the action that we are taking now will help us create some buffer to make sure that we can finalize this year in good shape. All of these are actions that will help us take action in this situation of uncertainty. But what about next year? For next year, I created 3 scenarios. One is the best case scenario. This scenario is assuming that we will be successful and that we will be able to stop the spread of the disease by early summer, and that we will be recovered by the fall. This projection is optimistic because it assumes a V-shaped recovery, assumes revenue losses in the first quarter of 20%, and then continue improving throughout the year. The projection of revenues for this scenario is $49.1 million. The base case scenario is a conservative approach. This is using the budget for fiscal year 2020 as a baseline. This projection is conservative because it's assuming no change in revenues in relation to the budget. This scenario is proposing a $48.3 million revenue. And the worst case scenario, which is, I think, the one that we don't want to think about, but definitely we should, because it's also a possibility, assumes that the economy will take a turn for the worst, and that recovery will take longer. And recession is part of this outlook. And this scenario definitely, for me to be able to evaluate and predict what it will be the revenue, it's not possible. But definitely, it's something that we have to think about. So in order to plan well for next year, we have to consider the 3 possibilities. So what is the proposal for next year revenue budget? We want our budget for fiscal year 2021 to be flexible. We have to remember that a budget is a financial plan and is a policy document that gives the guide how the revenues will be allocated among the different services and programs. And once the tentative budget is adopted, it can decrease, but it cannot increase. We want to plan for the base and put the different, our best case scenario in the revenues into contingency. This approach will allow us to plan for the best case scenario, and if revenues come into the city as we expected, we can release those, and also has controls, because if the situation doesn't improve, we are doing we are exercising fiscal responsibility, but guarding those funds. For us, restricting those funds is the way that we want to exercise the fiscal responsibility. Because we have to remember that not because a budget is adopted and we have the authority to spend it, it means that we can spend it. We have to be responsible, and we have to make sure that for the expenditures that we make, we have the matching revenue that we projected. So in this way, we can predict for both. We are putting some funds into the revenue budget. We are not shooting ourselves on the foot and being afraid and say, oh no, let's go very low, because things might go for the worse. But we're trying to be optimistic, but we are just trying to put some safeguard mechanism to protect the city. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about how the revenue is distributed among the different funds in the city. Most of our revenue comes from the
One second, please.
Sure.
What happened, Tayo?
They're putting up the presentation on your screen as well.
Thank you. I was going to ask you about that. Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Monica, proceed.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you how the revenue is distributed among the different funds in the city. We can see that the general fund is almost half of the revenue for the city, representing 42%. Wastewater, water, and grants range between 11% and 13%. HERF is 7%, ambulance service 5%, special assessment 1%, solid waste 3%, and component units 6%. In component units, we group the impact fees, business incubator, and business center. We just put them together because they're not so big, so just so that we can have a higher representation. Okay, I'm trying to click, but it doesn't click. Do I go forward or do I go back? Forward? Okay, but I wanted to go back. Okay. Okay, now this pie chart, as I mentioned right now, the general fund represents the largest portion of revenue that the city gets. And the city sales tax is the main source of revenue that the general fund receives, with 42%. Urban revenue sharing is 21%, and ranking and third is the state sales tax, 16%. So those three are the main sources of revenue that we have, but the city sales tax definitely supersedes the other two. For the other funds, they range between 4% and 7%. So right now, we were discussing the potential loss of revenue. For us, we rely too much on the city sales tax. And that's the source of revenue that we anticipate is going to be the most affected with this crisis that we are going through. That's why, and maybe I'm going to be saying it throughout this presentation, that's the reason we really need to set our priorities straight and have good planning in case situation goes at a level that it will be more difficult to sustain for the city. Now I'm going to shift my presentation to the expenditures. And in the same way as for the revenues, I'm going to talk to you about the history, where we are now, and what are some recommendations for next year. Before we go into a depth analysis of the expenditures, I just want to give you an overview of the distribution of all funds. and how the expenditures is distributed among them. The general fund is 45%, about the same as revenue, but a little bit higher. If you recall, general fund was like 43%. HERF and grants are 10%, both. And wastewater and water is 9%. Solid waste is 3%. Component units 8%. A special assessment is 1%. Now this chart shows you how the expenditures are distributed by category and on what do we spend most money. Right here is showing salaries, pretty much is what we spend, most of the revenues that come in, and it's 42%. Second is capital items, representing 22% of the chart. And third will be, it's interesting that but that one will be special services, the one that is missing the name, the orange one. And maintenance 5%, supplies 3%, and 8% our expenditures is for the payment of our debt service. Contingencies is 0.5%, but as I was mentioning in the strategy that we are proposing, we wanted to increase the contingencies by $800,000 and reduce the other categories by $800,000. Now I'm going to show you the history for the expenditures. And for the 4 years, from 2016 through 2019, expenditures have been increasing in an average of 2% average. For 2020, it increased by 27%. However, when you compute the 5 years, from 16 to 2020, we get a 7% average, which is exactly the 7% average that the revenues have increasing. So that's good. That means that we were stabilizing. We have some carryovers, positive balances, because we were having more revenues and we were more conservative on the expending. So in 2020, we were able to maximize what we had. For 2021, the increase is 70% in relation to 2020. However, I want to just mention that these expenditures came in before the COVID-19 situation exploded, and it is evident that we cannot go into next year with 56.1 million expenditures, 17% much more than 2020. So now we get to the interesting part, balancing the budget. In the next presentation, part of the presentation, I'm going to be explaining the step process that we take to balance the budget and the action that is needed to achieve that goal. So a good structurally balanced budget match is recurring revenues with the recurring expenditures. We want to make sure that we pay recurring expenditures with recurring revenues. Also, we do have one-time revenues, but those only can cover non-recurring expenditures, and this is to maximize resources. Some of those balances that we have is impact fees, and those are funds that are restricted and for specific projects. For next year budget, there are some projects that we will be able to start using impact fees funds. Those are the fire substation, park, and streets. Also, we do have fund balances that are positive, and those are positive carryovers from prior years due to operational savings or revenue results when revenues were higher than what we projected, or projects that we couldn't realize We also have some balance of those. There are also other budget balancing strategies, such as identifying council priorities. This is very important for us in the budget process because it gives us some guidance on what is important for the community, for council. And right now, in the priorities that we have is the construction of a park, the third phase, implementation of the salary adjustment, fleet shop, and the fire substation. As I mentioned, this is very important for us to understand what are the priorities because unfortunately, we don't have revenue to do all the projects. And these are guidance that is very useful for us when it's time for us to reduce or plan ahead. So if anything change or if there are other things that are not included here, it's important that we are informed so that we can readjust and plan accordingly. We also request the department's collaborations. All departments should participate and scale back in relation to their increase to the baseline. So next week, we're gonna go back to the drawing board and I'll be asking departments to go back and reduce some of the operating budgets. There are some departments that are way much more than the baseline. There are others that are at the baseline, so it's not going to be all across the board or the same. It's an evaluation, but we will let you know what is the reductions that we need from your department. We also ask departments to give us a priority of the projects that they submit, and this priority is evaluated to do budget reductions. We also do mid-year reduction. Depending upon the fiscal climate, reductions may be necessary to keep the current year budget in balance, which is kind of what I was discussing in the first part of the presentation. Right now, the situation is calling to do those actions because this is in risk for the budget to be unbalanced if the revenues do not come as we projected when we put in place the 2020 budget. Now, there is less desired strategies, and those are furloughs, time off without pay, and this is a tool to avoid layoffs, and reserves. These are one-time nature, and it is a big no-no to use or to fund ongoing operational expenses with reserves. This is a buffer that protects us when all other strategies have failed. This is definitely our last resort. So where we are now. I am not going to discuss ambulance, water, wastewater, and solid waste. No action is needed for them. They are balanced. For the business incubator and the business center, they need more work. We are brainstorming and devising a strategic plan on how to make these two funds self-sustainable. So I'm not going to be talking about them either. Our concentration will be the general fund and the HERF fund. This is where we need to take action now. For the general fund, we started with a deficit of $4 million, and we added the purchase of the hotel land. This was a last minute. I was just informed this week that the purchase is not going to happen this year. So we needed to add that item because it was not included in the budget. We are also proposing reduction in capital projects of $600,000 and reduction of new positions of $800,000. I want to thank Tadeo and Ralph for working on this and doing the recommendations. Also, we have a positive balance of $2 million of positive carryover. So taking in consideration all those factors, we still have a red number there. So we need to reduce furthermore by $1 million. For HERF, we have $2 million deficit. We are proposing a reduction in capital projects of $200,000. There we have a positive balance of impact fees of $900,000. So for HERF, we need a reduction in expenditures of $900,000. There is also in the general fund some projects that are being proposed to be done with impact fees, and it is $1.2 million. We do have positive balance for that, as I mentioned, so pretty much no need to reduce those projects. So in summary, for the general fund, we need $1 million budget reduction, and for HERF, we need a $900,000 reduction. So where do we reduce? These charts show you an expense comparison between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2020. Right here, we can see that all categories are higher than 2020. The total increase is $2 million more than last year. And the three items that stand out are salaries with $1 million more than last year, capital items, $400,000 more, and special services, $400,000 more. Special services is an account where we have contractual services, professional services, travel, special programs. So my recommendation will be to make reductions in those three areas. As I mentioned, we need $1 million budget reduction, and it's possible that we might need more because these numbers do not include the operating costs for the new park. The director of parks informed me that they were not able to get this information on time, but I'm pretty sure that he mentioned that for the presentation, he will have the numbers, so those will need to be added into those numbers. Also, it is possible that the general fund will need to subsidize HERF, and I will be talking a little bit more about in the next part of the presentation. I just want to keep saying that we have to be conservative about the operations, capital, and new positions. We have a very uncertain economic outlook, too many unknowns, and we really want to be prepared for whatever scenario is thrown at us. We don't want to put in risk the financial health of the city. So, HERF. HERF is a very difficult fund to balance. Why? Well, because the incongruency that we have with the revenues that are coming in with the growing needs of our community. So for HERF, we are projecting also a decrease in sales for fiscal year 2021. We don't know how much either. The Leagues of Cities informed us that most likely it's going to be much less than what the numbers that they provided us first. So for conservative purposes, for HERF, we're using the same revenue of 2020 as our baseline for the budget. In HERF, we see that pretty much all categories are about the same as last year, with the exception of capital items, which is $1.2 million more than last year, and salaries, which is $100,000 more than last year. By looking at this chart, logically we can say, okay, maybe in capital items we can make those reductions. But before we go into that direction, I want to show you exactly what is happening in HERF and what is inside of those $2.5 million that are being requested. So for HERF, we have $2.5 million of projects requested for next year. Inside of those projects, there is $900,000 for the phase 2 of the Cesar Chavez Boulevard improvements. And all of that project is going to be done with impact fees. And as I mentioned, we do have funds for impact fees. So pretty much cutting that out, it wouldn't make a difference. So in order to make the reductions where it will make a difference, we need to go at the projects that are non-impact fees. And those are circled in red in the slide. It is 1.6 million of non-impact fees. So if we reduce those by the 1 million that we are over, we are left with $500,000 to complete projects. So now we look at the chart, we have 5 projects that are needed for next year. And we only have $500,000 to complete those projects. So, no question about, priorities need to be set. We cannot do them all. Or, if there are many projects that are a priority and are in excess of the $500,000, general fund can support the HERF by the difference. But I have to remind everyone that any subsidy given to HERF, general fund will need to make further reduction to what we have discussed. So instead of cutting 1 million from the general fund, we need to cut 1 million plus whatever subsidy we decide to give to HERF. Okay, so this is the tentative draft budget. This is pretty much what I envision and what I need the support of everyone here in this room and council of what I am recommending for next year. I am proposing a balanced budget that is mindful of the challenges we are facing. Right now, we know, as I explained, we need to cut 1 million and 0.9 million in general fund and HERF, and possibly more, depending if the priorities changes or we put more projects in. Remember, we can put as many projects as we want, but we only have so much capacity to do them. So if we put something in, we need to take something out. Pretty much that's the balancing act. And if you look into the third point, also we're proposing to increase the budget contingency. And this is an effort to safeguard funds because we don't know what is going to happen next year. So the chart shows the budget 2020. The middle one is proposed 2021 as it is right now without the reductions. And the tentative draft is pretty much my recommendation of what it will be the best approach for us to move into next year. If you see, it still is a very optimistic budget. We are more than fiscal year 2020. We are just being conservative in putting the additional or the excess into the contingencies so we don't spend it until we know that we have the funds and that the revenue losses are not hitting us in a way that the city cannot sustain them. So how do we work with a contingency budget? We identify capital items, salary items with a less priority, and we move them into this bucket. These items will be released from contingency gradually as we see revenues improve. Council approval is needed before it can be spent. These provide flexibility if revenues recover as we expect, or safeguard the funds if situation does not improve. So pretty much here, we are considering and budgeting for the two scenarios, the good and the bad. Closing thoughts. The impact of COVID-19 will have on the economy, it is unknown. But we expect it will be significant. We need to be conservative and be prepared. Our focus is to maintain operations, continuance of services, to community and continue to pay our existing staff. Even though our projections for the end of this year indicate that we will be able to sustain a decrease in revenues for the last quarter, we would not know for sure until mid-May. The impact can be greater than our projections. So it is wise to eliminate non-essential operating spending, postponing big projects, and delay hiring of non-essential. Oh, I'm sorry. And non-essential operating spending, postponing big projects, and delay hiring of non-essential positions until we have more information than last quarter. In order to be successful during these uncertain times, we need to set our priorities straight and strive to maintain expenditures aligned with revenues. Capital projects and new positions are the areas when we need to reduce expenses. We are a lean municipality, and we need to continue on the same path. Right now is not the time to go aggressive and change the direction that we have been going in the past years. We want to set ourselves for every potential outcome and ensure we have the flexibility to take action no matter what card we are dealt with. Planning for all scenarios can be achieved by putting aside funds in our contingency. We want to safeguard funds in the event the situation does not improve. In case the situation improves, we can release the funds and do the projects. In this way, we are planning for both scenarios. We don't want a budget too low and then say, hey, the situation wasn't as bad as we thought. Oh, we should have budgeted for more. So we are doing that, we're budgeting, but we are being conservative, like protecting those funds if the situation doesn't improve. We have to act with fiscal responsibility, not just because we have a budget and authority to spend it, it means that we should. If the situation turns for the worst, we have to take needed action to protect the city and ensure the services to our community are maintained. Sometimes even we have to go and reduce expenditures. We have a healthy financial situation with a capability to face a possible downturn in the economy. However, the use of reserves should be our last alternative. There is a long road ahead, but we are resilient, and I am sure that we will bounce back. Thank you so much for your attention. And I'm open for any questions you might have.
Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for being straightforward. It's very important that we take that into account. The fact that you mentioned that we have been running a lean budget for many years, and that's true, Monica. We still don't forget what happened with the economic crisis that occurred in 2008, 2009. And since then, the reason why we're in this position right now, it's because we've been running lean every year. So when you recommend certain cuts, I don't think no one in council sees that as a problem, because we've been cutting. We've been actually been doing this every single year for the past 10 years. And that makes a difference. That really makes a difference. And no, I think we will succeed. We will go through this. And thank you for not taking into account, because there are going to be programs or loans or actually money coming from the federal government that actually will help municipalities like ours. But we still have to apply for those programs. We still have to apply for those loans because it's very important. But we should not depend on those. And your budget, your recommendations is based on what we have right now. On a lean budget, we continue, and I think that should be our idea, our lean budget. There are some programs or there are some projects that we're going to have to hold off, but I think next couple of days, today, tomorrow, we're going to definitely try to focus on that. And I thank you, Monica, and I thank your staff. The presentation was very clear, and it was not complicated. I thank you for very simple charts, easy to understand. I know they may look simple, but it took some time to make. So, gracias. I really appreciate that. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for council members and see if they have any concerns or questions. But we will be working with this budget. Our budget is based on what you told us, Monica. And we're very grateful because you mentioned everything that needs to be mentioned. The salaries, for example, the scheduled salary raise, the park, for example, the substation in F section, the widening of Juan Sanchez, actually Cesar Chavez Boulevard. You also mentioned that the structure for maintenance, that's another investment. The improvements that need to happen in the F section, you also mentioned those. So thank you, because everything is on the table. Let me be very clear. Everything is on the table. We need to run a lean budget, as you mentioned, and I support you, and I'm pretty sure council will support you. So I'll open the floor for council members. Councilmember Ponce, questions, concerns?
Not this time, Mayor, but I'd like to commend Monica Castro for a wonderful job. And Monica, you're one of the greatest. You're one of the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good comment. Matias Rosales, council member, any questions or concerns?
No, everything's pretty clear. My only concern is, like Monica recommended, we just gotta make sure we understand what the essential positions are for hiring. We're gonna be holding up on filling in positions. There's some that are important that need to be filled in, and I'm pretty sure staff, and admin and council will be on the same page on that.
Good observation, Councilmember Matias. Councilwoman Figueroa Luna Carrasco, questions or concerns?
I just have a question, Mayor, for Monica. First of all, thank you for your presentation. It was very, very informative. My question is, how much do you think it'll cost to implement the next phase for the salary adjustment?
Right now, we have in the budget $700,000 for the salary adjustment.
Is that enough to cover what's projected?
This will be for the third phase, and pretty much, if we are able to implement this third phase, pretty much most of the city employees will be at least 90%, and at the salary market rate, and about, I think, 90% of the city employees will be 100%. We have done a lot of great things together. Definitely, I think that we collaborate well, and this third phase is pretty much what is proposing. But again, maybe right now there's too many priorities, so it's important to know exactly what it will be a priority for next year. We cannot do all of them.
Yeah,
Well
that's
said, Monica.
understandable. Thank you.
Good question, Councilmember Carrasco. Gloria Torres, any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes, Monica, I know that you're very careful with the budget and with the expenses, and we don't know in the future how it's going to be with this situation. And I want to thank you for your good job that you're doing. And I know that our priorities says the salary adjustments, but and that I think in this time with the situation that we are running, I think you have to be very careful. And the salary, I know that employers, everybody needs a raise, but in this time, I don't think we don't have to expect anything. We have to be very careful because we don't know the future.
Yeah,
And I thank you very much for your job. You're good, and you and your staff are doing a very good job.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Torres. Definitely, like you mentioned, it is a difficult year ahead. We don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. And it might be that at the end of the day, it's not that bad, but still, we cannot assume that. We got to be prepared for any scenario. And definitely, that's why it is important to have the direction of council. And what, if it comes to the situation of reducing, what it will be that it will be reduced. Among everything is important, so that's where the tough decision lies in.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Councilmember Torres, for a very good question and comment. I will now, Vice Mayor, any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes, Mayor. I want to thank Monica and her staff for this great presentation. And I really, really am so grateful for, she kept saying that we have to go conservative and be conservative. So I really do appreciate that, because I believe what they presented is going to be easier for us to start even reducing it more, as she has commented.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for that comment. Councilmember Buchanan, any questions or concerns?
No questions, no concerns. I just want to thank Monica and her staff for doing a great presentation. And I guess we all staff understand that she's in a very difficult position, trying to balance the budget and, everything for the city, But I think it was very well explained. And thank you. Thank you for doing what you guys do. And I think you're guiding us, to the right path, and giving us advice and educating us, what we need to do and what's important for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. Good comment, good question, and good observation. Monica, I'd like to reiterate what council members have mentioned, and from the comments that you heard, that council is ready to make those tough decisions that are going to have to be made.
Yeah.
And with working together with your staff and with all our staff, I think this is just an example that the council has always been and is ready to make the right decisions. It has never been easy. Let me, since day one, our budgets have never been easy. They have always dealt with specific decisions that affects our community, our staff, and this is no different, but it is more critical. So we need to plan ahead. We need to keep a lean budget. And Monica, one more time, thank staff and thank you for the recommendations. And Tadeo, thank you. And Ralph, let me mention Ralph. Estás muy calladito ahí, Ralph. But thank you also, Ralph, for your opinions, and because it all matters.
Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you. Okay, now we're done with Monica. Our next presentation. Do we have our next presentation?
Public Works.
Public Works. Okay. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Mr. Vera, I know that your presentation is going to be interesting, and you're going to let us how we're going to cut our budget.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Well, Monica did a good job on her, so I think I can skip that portion. I can go directly to water or solid waste. No.
Well, you decide. You decide. Thank you, Mr. Vera. Could you let us know what tab you're going into? For example, let's see here. You're going with what tab number?
Yeah, so I think the presentation is in order, so we'll start with her. Okay. And it'll be, I mean, it's I'm not sure what do you see on your end?
HERF is tab 28.
Oh, okay.
Tab 28. Perfecto. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Perfect.
Yeah, so I think we'll do with the HERF and then solid waste. I'm not sure what tab that is, and then water and wastewater.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll get started.
Yes, please.
So first of all, I also want to, thank Finance. They do a lot for Public Works throughout the year. We do manage quite a bit of the funds, with streets, water, wastewater, solid waste, fleet. And there's a lot of changes. We haven't been able to accomplish some of the projects that for the last couple of years that we've had in the budget. But we've been able to do other projects, to try and projects that are needed. So I thank them for the help and the guidance that we get throughout the year. So starting off, let me figure this one out here. Okay, so we'll get started with highway users. So going back and sort of trying to summarize a little bit of what Monica mentioned regarding HERF. Usually for this, I put together, and I've always done this for HERF. So I put together the projects that are mentioned throughout the year and that we know have the largest need. And but I understand that not all of them are going to be funded. So the list that I put together, it's definitely over the budget, definitely over the revenues. So I sort of put them out there and then have council help decide or pretty much decide which ones are of the most priority. We usually try to put them on there on the order of priority that we think should be built. But then again, that's a decision that we can that you guys can make and change them around as you wish. So with HERF, one of the projects that we had in the previous years, and again, it's on the list, 4th Avenue and Cesar Chavez intersection improvements. We started a couple years ago with this project. We started acquisition process with Arizona State Land. We were really close, and recently they sort of sent us the appraisals, and the cost per acre went from around $30,000 an acre to somewhere around $75,000 an acre. So we're still, and that's within the last few weeks that we received this from them. So we're trying to figure out what happened. The school bought some land right next to us for less than $30,000 an acre, and suddenly they're expecting us to pay $75,000. So that project again, sort of, we weren't able to deliver this year. And we're hoping we can figure out the issues with the right-of-way acquisition and move forward next fiscal year. So with that said, I just want to mention, since I'm on that project, and I'll move faster on the other ones. On that one, we're going to be able to use those funds for other street projects. So we're doing some repaving in Los Portales area. So at the end of the
Mr. Vera, let me intervene on that. We are not going to pay $75,000 for something like that. Let me be very clear. These people think a school paid $30,000 and they expect us to pay $75,000. It's not going to be that way. Okay, Mr. Vera. So I agree with you. Absolutely not. Thank you. Proceed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think part of the issue, and I'm not really a real estate, I don't have that real estate background, but I think what happened is we have this commercial projects going up in San Luis now, like the Shea Oil, the Chevron, and we have these other gym project, and this is commercial land, and they're probably using it as a comparison, and I think that's what's happening. And then the other issue was on the state land side. The person that had been working for us for the last 3-4 years recently retired, so somebody else started from scratch, and I think that was sort of what the big difference. So hopefully we can iron those issues out soon. So we have this project back again, 4th Avenue and Cesar Chavez. We have a budget for $900,000 on there. The next project that I have as a second priority is County 22nd and 4th Avenue intersection. A few years ago, we went in and widened that intersection and added a couple turn lanes. So right now, the plan is to go in and add a traffic signal. We weren't able to do it at once, so we phased it out. I think we're ready. Very high priority just because there's some visibility issues at the intersection. So the sooner we can get that signal in, the better it is for our constituents. And for that, I have 150,000 for that signal. And go ahead and stop. I'm going to go through the project. Stop me as I go along if there's any specific questions, and then I'll open it to at the end for questions again. Third project, and actually on the third project here, I want to promote a couple of my staff and highway users to specialists from technicians. I noticed that on the budget here we have like new positions, but it's really just the difference between the technician and the specialist salary. So that's something that we have to correct. So there'll be some savings there. The next is a traffic signal on 10th and 4th on Cesar Chavez Boulevard. That one we started with design, and same thing. We needed some right of way from state land, and it's pretty much the same holdup as 4th Avenue and Cesar Chavez. And so hopefully we can iron those details out here very soon. That's a project that we're looking to get funding from developers as well to pay for half of it. We also have the pavement preservation slurry. Hopefully the city can do some chip seal. That's the next item, and we have 350,000. That's what we've been doing slurry the last, I think at least 3 years, and I think maybe even a little bit more than that before that. So, I, as a public works director, ex-public works director, and as a resident, I'm very thankful that council has supported the pavement preservation. I think in the long run, it's money well spent. If you let those streets go, on the long run, yeah, you'll never get enough money even to make them sort of semi-drivable. So the city needs to keep the pavement preservation program in place. On the chip seal side, we did 1 year. We did several streets with chip seal. We work with Yuma County, and Yuma County shied away from doing it themselves, and they contracted it out. But that year that we did it, we saw significant savings. I mean, I think we were able to do it like for a third the cost that a contractor can do it for. So between Somerton and San Luis, we requested Yuma County to see if we could get their ship spreader. So Somerton was able to get it, but they sort of they have it, but it's really with the condition that we use it whenever we need it. So I think hopefully in the near future, San Luis staff and Somerton can work together and do some of our streets with chip seal. Next project on the list, Sidewinder Road in County 22nd. That project's also on the list, and it's for $120,000. In there, we were looking at just adding turn lanes. During peak hours, we get significant backups in that intersection. So we're looking at doing turn lanes just to be able to keep County 22nd Street traffic flowing better. The next one on the list, we had wanting a new building for highway users. So highway users is always tight, and I don't think there will always, and I don't think any year you'll see extra money in there for a new building. But that's one of the largest departments that we have, or highway or public works has, and they have quite a bit of equipment. And right now with the current building they have, which is a pre-manufactured home, it's tight. And I think for the long run, I think the city should invest in a building. That way they can have a shop as well as a good office space, and definitely a room where they can also store some of the signs. Right now we don't have room for sign storage. We always have to be ordering them and having to wait. So I think it's needed, and it is a priority. And I have $200,000 for that. And we were looking at doing something similar to what the water currently has right now for their building. The next one on the list is some street improvements for the streets neighboring the new 20-acre park in East San Luis. And for that, we have a little bit over $500,000. And those are streets running north-south as well as east-west on 3 sides of the park parcel. And those are for half streets. The other half streets are, two of them are already built. One of them is already built, and the other one's going to be built with new subdivisions that are going in now. The next one is a piece of equipment, is a dump trailer. This trailer would definitely help us during our community cleanup. Currently, we borrow parks, but they do, we use it as available, but it definitely helps on the, for access of picking up the, what we need to pick up through the city. So that's a little bit over $12,000, almost $13,000. And we also have a new vehicle. It will be a replacement, New Colorado for a little bit over $23,000. And I have one on my list, and on the presentation, I didn't find it on the binder, or on our binder, so I'm thinking it's probably not on yours. But that was just the access to Public Works Yard, and that's a $13,000 item. But that's really just to help with visibility when you're coming in or exiting the Public Works Yard. The visibility when you're pulling a trailer, visibility is hard, as well as distance to park to open up the gate. So I think that's also a priority. And if we don't get on the budget added, I think it'll have to come up out of the operating fund. But it's definitely a priority. I don't know if there's any questions on any specific projects. And again, I want to clarify, on highway users is the only division that I always go with extra projects, because I sort of want to provide options as which ones you guys can delete, and prioritize as you wish. All of them are good projects, but that's the way I present it. I can definitely cut it down and limit to what I think, but this way at least you see some other projects that could be built.
Mr. Vera, I have a quick question for you. Well, actually a comment. Regarding the preservation of our streets, we have been very aggressive. Since day one, you actually got hired, and the recommendation was to, how can we fix our roads? We are never going to have enough money to fix all the roads. We still have quite a few, but they're limited. We can count them, the roads that need replacing. We are not ignoring any roads. Every single road in the city of San Luis has been assessed, and there's a sequence to fixing them, especially in the lower parts of San Luis that we need to replace. Some of them roads we cannot preserve. If measures were actually done before, those roads could have been maintained, or at least had some life left. But roads were neglected. They were not doing what we're doing now. And it would be an error to discontinue fixing those roads. We will not have enough money to replace those roads. So by doing that, by what we've done, by the chip seal and all the different techniques that we're using, and we're sharing contracts with Somerton, Yuma County, and the city of Yuma, we're actually saving a lot of money in the long run. So I commend you and your staff, Mr. Reda. And it's something that I don't think we can afford to stop doing. It's for the future of our roads, and it's what's keeping us going. So I thank you and I commend you. So the work must continue. Now, all the other projects I think we can discuss. And so I know Matias Rosales has one in particular. I see you. And so there's things that we need to do. And like I said, you're only asking $200,000 for that particular item, and I think it needs to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to each council member and see what they want to say. Okay, thank you. Council member Ponce, observations, questions, or concerns?
No, sir.
Thank you. Council member Matias Rosales, comments, questions, or concerns?
Oh, you guys know the only question that I have. So, the only concern. We're good to go.
We are definitely on the same page. Okay, so Councilman Africa Luna Carrasco.
No, Mayor, no questions. Just asking Eulogio if he wants to take his resignation back.
There you go, Mr. Eulogio Mera. That is a very good question, and I will entertain it anytime.
No,
Okay.
thank him for outstanding job he has done for his professionalism and everything else that he represents.
Good comment, Councilmember.
Second that.
No pressure, Mr. Vera. Okay. Councilmember Gloria Torres, questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, I have a question for Elogio. I don't know, you remember that, I don't know, in the middle of the year, I asked you about the recycling program. I don't know if right now it was a good and proper to see if we can implement that program. When we talk about it, we says that we're going to put it on the budget retreat. But I don't know right now with the situation. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Vera?
Councilmember Torres, I'll go ahead and answer right now. This is just the highway user section yet, but on that one specifically, I think it's going to be difficult for recycling. I think if we were to do it citywide, I think there might be some subsidizing from general fund to be able to do it for citywide. Currently, the setup that we have, we take the recycling to Somerton. They have their own recycling plant, and they use inmates to help save on the operations. But there's really not much profit out of recycling. So if Somerton tomorrow was going to say, you know what, we can't do it, it's not profitable, we can't do it anymore, it will cost us actually more to recycle than to take it to the landfill. So we do have approximate numbers based on savings on our end currently with the current setup, but I think it's a little bit too risky to take it citywide at this point. For example, right now with the COVID-19, if they're, I'm not even sure why they're even taking it. I'm not sure if they can use inmates or not. We're not using inmates. So either way, we've continued, but it's risky, I think, for the city to move in that direction at this time. That's my opinion. But we can definitely do more analysis and look for other options. But I know the other recyclers in Yuma, it will cost us more to take it to them than to the landfill.
Okay, there is not possible, and there's a lucid thought. It's all right. And another thing is, I want to thank you for all the good job that have been done and for the city, Mr. Elogio. We miss you a lot.
Oh, thank you.
No pressure, Mr. Elogio Vera. I know. Council member, Vice Mayor, comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to comment. Thank you to staff and Mr. Vera for an amazing job that they have done maintaining our streets, which was one of our priorities all the time. But I just want to make a comment as far as what would be my priority on the list of projects that he presented, which would be 10th Avenue and Cesar Chavez Boulevard intersection improvements. Because of all the complaints that we receive, I think the traffic signal would be very, very beneficial in keeping some of the angry drivers, in compliance with the way we should be driving. I think that is very much needed. So that would be one of my top priorities.
That's a good observation, Vice Mayor. Thank you. Let's see here. Councilmember Mario Buchanan, any questions or concerns?
No questions, no concerns. I just want to mention to Elogio that we thank him for a very good job and putting his knowledge in our community. I know that he's a resident of city of San Luis and he knows what the needs of our community are. So I think we're going to miss a really good candidate. I mean, a good worker, and good luck for him in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember. I believe he's already started working for, who's your employer right now, Mr. Reda?
Yeah, I move on to work for Reclamation, Bureau of Reclamation.
Yeah, I figured. Good, good. Any comments or concerns anymore? If not, good job, Mr. Rivera. Your presentation was very thorough and short to the point. I appreciate that. One more thing.
Well, it's only this is only streets.
That's only for streets. He has the other divisions.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So this is really the more complex one, just mainly because, like I said, it has more projects than what we can afford, and I know that up front. I just listed them based on our priorities. One thing that I wanted to add on the highway users before I move on to solid waste. One of the it'll be beneficial to everybody here and as well as council. Many times we get complaints and we get angry customers calling. Why are you guys applying slurry or chip seal or crack seal? On those streets that are much nicer, much better conditions than our streets that are falling apart. And that's one of the comparisons that's made in trainings and seminars. Is you have to try and preserve the streets in good condition. Once they go beyond a certain point, it's too much investment to get them back to a decent condition, and it's sort of almost impossible to really structurally keep them in good condition continuously. So it's like you have a brand new vehicle, an old vehicle. Do you try to keep up your maintenance on your newer vehicle if you had the option? Either the older one probably needs more money, but then it'll be almost impossible to bring it back to the condition of the newer one. So that's sort of the comparison that they use in trainings, and that's sort of what it is with streets. So preserving it's definitely the best thing on long term. The other thing is when we started with the pavement preservation, a lot of work was put into the streets, crack sealing. For the first 3 years, and so all this work was done by our staff, good staff that has a hand there. They have pride in their community, so I really want to thank them. They almost used to say between them, that they were sort of in trouble, it was too much monotonous work. So after the third year, we caught up with crack seal, and we haven't really done that much ever since. So we're sort of caught up on that end. So I just say, the city continue with their pavement preservation, so that we can try to improve, repave the streets here and there that we can, and the other ones mainly shoot for preservation. So I'll move on to solid waste, and that's an easy one. That's for solid waste.
Tab 31.
It's a small department, enterprise fund, and we're requesting a new solid waste truck in the range of $280,000. Solid waste routes have been filled up now. We've had a lot of infill, a lot of new subdivisions. So right now we have 4 routes that are barely they're full routes. If something happens today with one of the trucks, the other trucks have to go in and either help them or they have to stay late because they're full routes now. So we might be looking into a 5th route very soon. But either way, this truck would mainly be replacing one of the older trucks for now. And if we were to have that 5th route here soon, we would have the other truck as a spare. So I'll open it up for questions, or I'll move on to water.
I'm going to go ahead and I just want to say solid waste trucks, geez, that's a must. Some of them are falling, but basically they need to be replaced. It's something that needs an investment that we can't ignore. It's probably going to cost us more to fix what we have right now than to purchase a new truck. And so, no, I agree with you. And plus, solid waste is becoming a lot more expensive.
Right, and we feel it like now that the 4 routes are full. When one breaks down, one of the trucks breaks down, it puts a lot of burden on the other drivers, and it could be for a week or two. And we get a lot of complaints, people calling in. When how come they're late? They usually come by by this time or that. So this will replace probably. I'll just take a guess, but I think it's like a 2007 model that probably has been refurbished at least once already. So it is good to keep a fleet. You know, your trucks with probably within 10 years is the max lifespan that most municipalities use for their trucks. Some do them every 5. So here I think we're doing way more than 10, and I mean this will be a good time for replacement for one of the older trucks.
Good. Councilmember Ponce, any questions or concerns?
No, sir.
Matia Rosales, questions or concerns? Thank you. Africa Luna Carrasco?
No, sir.
Thank you. Gloria Torres, comments, questions or concerns?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, any comments, questions or concerns?
None. Thank you.
Marty Buchanan, any comments, questions or concerns?
No, Mayor, no question.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, proceed to your next presentation, please.
So next presentation is water.
Tab 29.
Tab 29, perfect, thank you.
So we're looking for this first item is tank rehabilitation. We have 3 tanks right now that needed rehabilitation. For fiscal year 2020, we were trying to do two tanks, but and it was scheduled to happen pretty much right now within the last couple of weeks and through this month. But we stopped it because we didn't know what was happening, and some of the contractors were saying, you know, that they would have to stop if this was to get worse. And with that said, we couldn't afford having those tanks non-operational. So from discussing with the water supervisor and our operations, we couldn't take that risk, so we decided not to do it this fiscal year. The window to do the coating, the rehabilitation, it's only a couple months. You can't do it when it's too cold and when it's humid either. So there's only a small window, and it falls in this month's here. So we didn't do it. So for next year we have one here in our budget. We'll see if we can add another one. We'll have to go back with finance and see if we can add at least another tank. I know the revenues for water, they just should sustain doing 1 or 2 or even 3. But I know they look at the bottom line as well. So we'll coordinate with finance and see what we can get in there in administration. The next item on my list is replacing pumps for well site 3. Those are really on the CIP. We're on here just because of the price. That's mainly the reason, but it's really an operational maintenance cost. I also have a manganese removal system. So that's for the new well site that we are going to be looking to add in East San Luis. And that's a little bit over 1.2 million. And we have 80,000 for the land purchase. My advice would be if we could buy it this year. That way the land's there and we can definitely just work on design and trying to, I would even recommend starting design, you know, as soon as possible for that well site. We know it's needed. Mainly to support the increasing demands of the commercial/industrial development. Okay. And the last item on here is one new position for a chief operator. Currently, water has 1 chief operator to help the supervisor. Wastewater has 2 chiefs. So we're looking at adding 1 here for water. That way, one of them can help with the collection on the distribution side, and the other one will help on the treatment side. And that's it for my water items. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vera. I agree with that position. I think it's one of the required positions. I think water and wastewater are crucial, and I believe we should have enough staff to cover, especially in these times that it's so crucial to protect the basic services that we provide our customers. If we only have 1 or very limited operators or chief operators, it limits our ability, if someone gets sick or gets exposed, to continue providing those essential services. So I agree. I think that's an essential position. And regarding to water tanks, we are growing. And everything's getting, we need to make sure that we're ready for this growth and we can continue expanding what we have. So I agree. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. I have no more questions or concerns. Councilmember Ponce, any questions or concerns?
No, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Matias Rosales, questions or concerns?
No, sir.
Let's see here. Councilmember Africa Luna Carrasco, questions or concerns?
None, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Gloria Torre, any questions or concerns?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, any comments, questions or concerns?
None, Mayor.
Thank you. Mario Buchanan, any comments, questions or concerns?
No, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Mr. Rivera, you have one more presentation?
I have two more, Mayor. Wastewater and fleet.
Perfect. Thank you. Proceed.
I can actually get both of them together and then ask for questions at the end. I can do that also.
Perfect. Go for it.
Okay, sounds good. So wastewater,
Tab number 30.
okay. So on the wastewater, the first one is a Kubota tractor. Mainly, again, it's a piece of equipment that's needed to maintain the percolation ponds. Currently, before we diverted flows over to the east plant, we didn't need it. Now that we're diverting flows or a significant amount of the flows, we usually borrow Parks tractor. But the one we're looking at purchasing is a little bit larger, that it's more adequate for the size of the work that we're doing. The second one is we're looking at purchasing a boom truck. They do have to do maintenance on the screens. Currently, they do it with ladders, or they do different methods of doing it, but it's really the safest way would be with a boom truck. So we definitely are looking after our safety of our staff. So that's the second item for $52,000. The third one is a spare pump. Gas and lift station, but just because of the size of the pump, it made it to the CIP list with a little bit over $36,000. Mainly spare pumps, mainly are really necessary because when a pump goes down, you have less pumps operating, and if you order one, it takes 3 to 6 months to get one. So that's why most municipalities have at least one pump for the lift stations, and if many times the lift stations share the same size pump, so we can one would be enough for multiple. But I mean, San Luis has multiple size lift stations, so this one would be for Gadsden. And then 2 Ford replacement trucks, total combined cost of $61,500, and 1 new wastewater operator for wastewater. Mainly necessary just because all the additional growth that we're seeing. So our operations are increasing, and I can say for all my divisions, we definitely are lean, and very lean. So that's, I think, is definitely necessary. So those are all for wastewater. On fleet, so it's the big one, the fleet shop. With that, it's back again in the budget, trying to move forward. Design's been slow. I think on this time, I can say, if we had better staffing, more staffing, we would have been able to keep more on track on this project. So hopefully we can do better next fiscal year with that. $450,000 in the budget, one project that would spread out over multiple years. But the goal was to try and get it up and running to at least the capabilities that they have it currently. Next project under fleet would be to convert the part-time mechanic to full-time mechanic. And then the third position would be a new position it's called the lot porter, detailer, mechanic position. Mainly that would be a person that would help the mechanics outside to coordinate deliveries, pickups, moving around vehicles. But either way, the fleet has or maintains over 300 pieces of equipment, maybe close to 350 now. So they're definitely very busy. We all know the city of San Luis doesn't have the newest fleet. So a lot of time goes into maintenance. Our equipment's not the newest either, so, you know, so we spend a lot of time maintaining equipment and repairing. So that's all I can say. You know, they're hardworking, but either way, it's just way too. The ratio of mechanics to equipment is very high compared to other community or municipalities. And that's the end of my presentation with those two. Any questions?
Thank you for that comment, because it really does make a difference. The amount of equipment and vehicles that the city has and has gained over the past maybe 5-6 years. We're talking about we replaced every single police vehicle in our fleet. We have replaced, basically, we have added sweepers. We've added trash trucks. We've added fleet vehicles, trucks to aid in wastewater and the different facilities. And so our guys are basically, the amount of mechanics has not changed, but the amount of equipment has changed. One, we looked at outsourcing services, and that budget, that expenditure, as Monica has explained, has been going up. If we can do it in-house, if we can hire someone, another mechanic, make it full-time, and having an assistant to the mechanic, I think in the long run, we will be saving money. Or we can always service it out, send that contract out, and pay prime dollar for those services. And I think we can do a lot internally, in-house. And so, because we're not getting any smaller. Well, let me put it this way: if people don't do their census, we're definitely going to be smaller. So that was my 2 cents. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Vera. Very, very, very thorough and very complete. I will now open the floor to council. Councilmember Ponce, questions or concerns?
No, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Matias Rosales, questions or concerns?
No, Mayor, everything is
Thank you.
good.
Thank you. Councilwoman Africa Luna Carrasco, questions or concerns?
No, sir, none.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres, questions or concerns?
No questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, questions or concerns?
None, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Mario Buchanan, questions or concerns?
No, Mayor, no questions.
Thank you. Mr. Vera, are we done with the presentations?
Yeah, I'm done with my budget presentation.
That was very short, Mr. Vera. That was good.
I just want to.
Short and to.
Yeah, I just want to
Short
comment. You know, all the work. You know, it's really staff that does all the work. So I want to just add that to my presentation. You know, thank to everybody, my staff, for everything that happens there. So.
And I commend you, because I know each section head supports their staff 100%. And I thank you for that, because without your staff, we wouldn't be where we are right now. So on behalf of council and behalf of my office, I would like to thank you and your staff. We do recognize the hard work they do. And every day, you guys wake up early and you work when it's heat's the worst. And I really appreciate what our staff, what your staff is doing, and continue the hard work. And gracias. Thank you. Do we have any other presentations at Paulo?
No.
Okay, so this will basically end our session for tonight.
For tonight.
For tonight. Okay, Mr. Vera, staff, gracias, section heads. I appreciate for you being here tonight. I don't see anyone too close there, so good social separation, good. And I really appreciate the hard work. So council, if not, I will now entertain a motion to continue budget for tomorrow.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those against? Motion carries. Like I said, tomorrow, we're scheduled to finish till 5 o'clock, but we will get done early. If I have to, I will shorten
Hey.
the presentations. And I just want to make sure. Okay, so thank you and have a good night.